and there's a belt, a girdle that goes around. And when these are tied, they are tied using a special knot that represents the Hebrew letters that spell a name of God.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delving into Jewish Rites of Death, stories of beauty and transformation. It is written by a terrific author. His name is Richard A. Light. Winner of a 2016 Nautilus Book Award, this profound work explores the sacred and compassionate Jewish traditions surrounding death, rituals that bring peace, dignity, and meaning to both the departed and the living. Through moving stories and timeless wisdom, Richard Light opens our eyes to the beauty that can emerge from one of life's most universal and transformative experiences. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Books to Life Marketing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Richard, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
It's an honor and a privilege to have you on the show. This book is so insightful. What inspired you to write it and share these sacred traditions with a broader audience?
Well, I was studying how to teach Jewish death practices, and it dawned on me that there was nothing available that shared what it felt like to do the holy work of caring for the dead. Nobody expressed, if I want to get involved in this, what is it like? Why would I do it? And so I decided to ask colleagues, and we ended up with 20-some authors who shared stories. And these stories are insightful and share the feelings, the insights, the power, and the holiness and sacredness of doing this work.
How did your own personal experiences with loss help shape the perspective that you bring to the book?
Well, when you lose someone, it's not just a trivial thing. And people's lives are more than just sharing experiences. We are multidimensional beings. We have a sacred holiness about us. We have a physicalness about us. We have personalities. We have all of these different aspects, sort of like facets of a crystal. And when someone dies, they don't just go away. There's both the mourning part of us, which carries this deep hole, and the more you love, the bigger the hole.
Yeah.
But there's also, in Judaism, we believe that people's soul, the holy part of them, lives on after death. So there's the idea that these souls are around. They're still there. We can't see them, maybe we can't hear them, but then again, maybe we can if we listen. So the idea is, especially in Jewish death practices, to honor that presence and be open to it. And when there's a loss, then we take action to comfort that soul as it's in transition between this physical realm and wherever it's going, this non-physical realm that it's moving into. So we comfort the soul, we care for the holy vehicle, the body that it inhabited, and we try to treat it with respect and dignity and show courtesy to the family so that their loss can be honored.
Yeah. Explain to us the concept of holy work within Jewish death rituals.
Well, the concept of holiness is a little intangible, a little hard to put your finger on, right? But if you've ever experienced a moment that was so profound that you might call it holy, it's hard to put your finger on, and yet its depth. It touches you in some deep aspect of self. And there are different ways of looking at life, of course, and at creation. And I'm not actually talking religion in the sense of belief in God or whatever.
Mm,
This is about the sacredness of what it means to be human,
mm,
and that we have this specialness. If you look into a child's eye and you see that sparkle,
mhm.
where did it come from? What creates that life force? There's something sacred there. There's something special there. And so, from a Jewish lens, we take that and we translate that into kadosh, holiness,
Mm.
sacredness, specialness. It's something unusual. It's not something you want to take for granted. And every living thing has that specialness. So there's something sacred about life itself, something being alive. And that's the lens that I call holiness.
Wonderful. What does Jewish tradition teach us about the sanctity of the body after death?
Well, as I mentioned, we consider it the vehicle for the soul.
Mm,
And it's sort of like saying, well, you have maybe a king or somebody who's very, very special, maybe the Pope or the Dalai Lama or something, and they ride in a coach that is special and that is really tailored for them. Well, when that Volkswagen Beetle dies, we get out of the car, and now what do you do with that old car, that chariot that carried this holy being? Well, we don't just throw it away because it served a sacred purpose.
mm,
Treat it with respect, we treat it with dignity, and in Jewish tradition, we bury it
mm.
because that's the most respectful way to treat that vehicle. And, it's not a hard and fast thing. It's not something that's dictated that thou shalt treat the body with respect. It's about dignity and sanctity, and I think the word respect really captures it. It's treating that vehicle with the dignity that it's due.
What do you feel are the most misunderstood aspects of Jewish death rituals among non-Jewish audiences?
Well, that's an interesting question because I've had non-Jewish people come to me and say, "Wow, what Jews do is so beautiful. Can you teach it to me? Can I do it?" By the same token, I think even within the Jewish community, most people don't know what Jews do around death,
Yeah.
whether they're non-Jews or Jews, because, well, we live in a death denial society. People
Mm,
don't want to talk about death. When a death happens, people say, "Oh, what now?" Right? They don't think ahead. And especially non-Jews looking at Jews, they don't have a clue that we have a whole range of experiences, of practices, of customs that are tailored for um, supporting the community. Jewish death practices are not just about death, they're about life, they're about
mm,
how we create a foundation for a community to live. When communities, in history, throughout history, when Jews were expelled from a country and they had to move to a new location, the first thing they did when they got to their new home wasn't create a synagogue or a school. It was to create a cemetery and a Hever Kadisha. Hever Kadisha is the organization that not creates, that takes care of the bodies when someone dies.
mm,
So death was what created the foundation for the community to then go on living.
mm,
So when you say what's misunderstood, well, we have this whole range of things we take care of, from visiting the sick, giving honor and dignity to those who are dying, to taking care of the body between death and burial, to treating the body with respect and burying it with dignity, to mourning and honoring the loss that people feel when they lose a loved one. All of that full spectrum is part of Jewish death practice. And I don't think very many people really understand that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I know about sitting Shiva. I know the fact that Jewish people tend to bury their dead quickly, I think within the first 24 hours, right?
That's the ideal. But
Hmm.
in the modern world, relatives live all over the place. So in the
Yeah.
modern world, a lot of times bodies are put in refrigerators and then they wait a few days or something until family members can arrive from who knows where in the
Yeah.
world, and again, it comes down to what is the most respectful in this situation for us to do for this family.
Yeah.
It may be different for different families.
Exactly. Talk to us a little bit, if you would, about Tahara, the washing and preparation of the deceased, and its spiritual symbolism as well.
So Tahara is fascinating. It's an opportunity for the people who do it. It's done. Well, let me take a step back. The ritual of Tahara is um, a procedure that is done by a group of people, maybe 4 people, 5 people, who come into a special room, usually at a funeral home, to prepare a body for burial. And the process includes washing the body physically, pouring water to purify the body and the soul spiritually, drying the body, dressing them in burial clothing, which are called tachrachim. And those clothes are special. I'll tell you about those in a second.
Mhm.
And then we put that dressed body into a casket, and the casket is plain wood with holes drilled in the bottom, so it'll go right back into the earth as quickly as possible. No frills, no fluff, no, fancy silk lining or any of that, just a
Mhm.
plain wooden box. And then earth from Israel is sprinkled inside to connect that person to the land of Israel, which is considered sacred land. And then the team, as part of the liturgy, I'll talk about the liturgy also in a sec.
Mhm.
The team then asks for forgiveness to the soul, saying, "We tried to honor you by doing this procedure, and if we messed it up, please forgive us." Then the
Mhm.
lid is closed and the casket is never opened again.
Mhm.
Now, the clothing is based on the clothing of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest in the time of the temple, and that means it is just plain white linen or cotton clothing. There's a shirt, a jacket, and a pair of pants, and a head covering.
Mhm.
And the pants are usually sewn at the bottom. The pant leggings are sewn at the bottom, so there's no feet sticking out. And they're just very simple clothes, no buttons, no zippers, no pockets, no nothing. There are little ties that are tied at the waist and around the neck and so forth. And there's a belt, a girdle that goes around. And when these are tied, they are tied using a special knot that represents the Hebrew letters that spell a name of God. So
Mhm.
it's an intent to put holiness into the dressing. And it's also an intent to treat everyone equally because the rich and famous are treated exactly the same as the poor and unknown. Everybody gets dressed the same because we're all equal in the eyes of God. And it doesn't matter if you believe in God or don't believe in God, everybody's treated with respect and dignity.
Yeah.
And that's the important part.
Yeah, absolutely. You were going to talk about the liturgy as well,
Yeah,
sir?
I was just going to come back to that. You asked about the spirituality.
Yeah.
The, the idea behind the liturgy is to, in my words, to midwife the soul between realms of existence. So we are using a liturgy that was written in 1626 by a man named Aaron Berechia in Modena, Italy. And he wrote a book called the Ma'avar Yavok, which means crossing the Yavok River. But he really was documenting the practices that were ubiquitous at that time, but weren't written down. And it's the first time that all Jewish death practices were ever documented. And basically, they haven't changed much since then. There are local customs that are varied from community to community, but the liturgy is pretty much the same everywhere. And the liturgy is pieces of writing that come from, I'll use the word Tanakh. It includes all of the writings of Jewish history. So there are portions from the Song of Songs, there are portions from the prophets, and various things of that nature. And the idea is that each step of the Tahara process, so I mentioned that we're going to wash the body in different ways, and then we're going to dress the body in different ways. Each step is accompanied with a reading from the liturgy. And the idea is that we're comforting the soul who is hanging around wondering what's going on with his body. And part of that seems a little weird. I mean, let's be real here. When I first got involved, I read some of this liturgy and I said, oh my God, why am I doing that? For example, I'll just give you a snippet because I know our time is short. Um, at the end, after the body is dressed and everything is pretty much done, there's a reading about the bier of Solomon, where it talks about Solomon being placed on his bier, and there are 60 Giborim protecting him. Giborim are soldiers who are skilled in war, and they are armed. Well, why on earth would you talk about this, at the end of this procedure? It seems so strange. But in reality, the very next reading is the reading that is done to honor the Kohanim. The Kohanim are the people who served in the temple, and it's a very famous liturgical statement that is in every Jewish service and so forth. But it happens that there are 60 Hebrew letters in that set of prayers, and those are the Giburim. These Hebrew letters have the power of supporting and protecting this soul as it moves between realms of existence. That's the Kabbalistic take on how this liturgy was put together. And that's the thing about the liturgy, is it's all infused with spirituality that comes from the Kabbalah, which is the mystical side of Jewish history. So it's fascinating, it's interesting, and the liturgy has been around, 400 years, and it apparently works because people do it and do it right, and it's accompanied by what we call kavanah. Kavanah is sacred intent. It's an intent to show utmost respect and dignity and focus just on this. Right now, I'm doing this for this person, unconditional kindness. I don't expect any thank you. The person's dead. They're not going to thank me, but I'm doing it 100% right here, right now. And that focused kavanah means I'm not thinking about the ball game or the family or anything else in my life. I am here for this person to do unconditional kindness and nothing else.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful insights, wonderful rituals, a wonderful book, whether you're Jewish or not. I think you'll learn a lot from this book about death, about dying, about immortality, about the sacredness of the human body and the sacredness of the soul. The name of the book is Jewish Rites of Death, Stories of Beauty and Transformation. It is written and curated by Richard A. Light. This book is an extraordinary journey into the sacred rituals that honor both life and death. You can find it right now on Amazon. The links are below this interview. Richard, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, and I wish you all the best.
I wish you all the best as well, sir. Thank you for your time, your insight, and the wonderful work you've done on this book. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.